What's going on, guys? Rival Teacher now, and welcome to the LGL Week 1 Power Rankings. This time it's just gonna be me alone doing it because Big Goose is unfortunately not very well. So it's just gonna be me taking the reins this week, but hopefully he'll be back next week ready to go. But do want to just quickly say a huge thank you to everybody who has played all the matches so far. It's been everyone played their games on time. Gotta love it. Definitely loving it so far. Let's keep that up because it's awesome. But moving into the power rankings, our criteria this time round is going to be largely based on win-loss and differential. Of course, as it's early days in the season, lots of people are going to be tied on scoreline for differential. So we'll talk about the reasons why and any extra factors for tiebreakers as and when we get to them. There's a lot of them this week, so there's a lot of things to break down. But hopefully you guys will be patient with me. But with all that being said, coming in at number 14 is going to be Chronoculars and the coach of Potpourri's Posse. This was a bit of an unfortunate one for Chronoculars. I felt like he had a very big syndrome of hitting what was in front of him and not really kind of trying to understand what J-Plane was trying to do. And largely because of that, he very much got rolled over. The Mudbray was exceptionally poorly played, allowing it to get toxic and then getting a little greedy, trying to close combat the Lalip. I don't know if he does any damage calcs. I'm fairly aware from the Big Goose last week in the last week's power rankings that Chronoculars is not an experienced player. It definitely kind of showed because Mudbray is a phenomenally good defensive Pokemon, and leaving it in against a really bulky Pokemon like Lalip, it's not going to kill with close combat at that point. So it was definitely a really cheap mistake, and it's a big problem in general. And alongside that, the Krogunk, I'm not entirely sure I would have taken the special route on the Krogunk in this matchup. I definitely would have liked Bulk Up Sucker Punch a lot more. Especially to deal with things like the Sinistea. Sinistea, of course, ended up sweeping him, picking up a lot of kills in this matchup. Definitely was an unfortunate one for Chronoculars. I'd like him to kind of understand a little bit more about kind of trying to play to his opponent instead of just necessarily playing what's in front of him. Because a lot of the time, your opponent's not going to stay in when they have a bad matchup into whatever's in front of them. So that's something just to bear in mind. Moving forward, would like to see a bit more kind of prediction game coming from him. Don't overdo it, obviously, because that's how you tend to shoot yourself in the foot. But have a good think about what your opponent might do before you make your moves. And that may give you a bit more success. Alright. But coming in at number 13, this time round, if Streamlabs will cooperate with me, is going to be ODF of the Cambridge Wild Cannibries. He also actually makes videos, so I'm going to leave his video down in the description below. Please go check it out if you haven't done so already. But yeah, definitely liked his turn 1. Really good play on the Aron. For some reason, the Aron wasn't sturdy. I'm pretty sure this was a mistake in Team Builder from Thief. I don't actually know if that was the case, but it certainly would seem like it. Really decent switching as well on turn 3, switching in the Vulpix on the Woobat's Heat Wave. But the problem is that's kind of where the positives really end for ODF this week. He opted for Will-O-Wisp on the Woobat instead of going for damage. I actually took the time to watch his Team Builder part of his video. It actually turns out he didn't have Dark Pulse, or I don't think I saw Willow Hex either, which would explain why he went for Will-O-Wisp instead of actually going for damage. I feel like Dark Pulse probably would have been just a nicer option because it would have actually stopped the Woobat from trying to 2-hit KO it. Unfortunately, that didn't really work out for him. Also, something that I noticed in your Team Builder ODF, I don't know if you've spotted this yourself, but some of your natures are kind of weird. Like your Vulpix, for example, was a gentle nature, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. Vulpix needs to be fast, it needs to be able to outspeed things, and if you're running a nature that's not investing in speed, you're kind of putting yourself in a bit of a weird spot. So maybe have a little bit of learning for team building. Little Cup is very, very weird with EVs as well. You very rarely ever get 252 EVs on a Little Cup mon. It doesn't really happen. So maybe try and mess with the EVs a little bit, kind of have practice a little bit on EVs. And if you need any help with that, feel free to ask. There's a lot of people in the Discord that are quite happy to help you. So definitely give that a look. Give a bit of practice for natures. It might give you a little bit more to work with. And now I hope you understand why Dreepy is not a very good mon. I criticized it in the post-draft power rankings, and you admitted it yourself. This thing just doesn't get any moves. That's kind of Dreepy's biggest problem. But yeah, for sure, definitely enjoyed watching it. I play you in week 3, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that match goes. But yeah, decent early game, but unfortunately it didn't carry on further on down the line. Alright, next up is going to be number 12. Is going to be Epsilon, coach of What's a Resistance. Pretty decent early reads, has to be said. Definitely liked the Hippopotas switch in on the rock side from Charmander, getting the Larvesta out of there. I was a little bit unsure why the Larvesta rested. It didn't really need to rest from there, the health it was at. But definitely had a bit of viability burning the Mienfoo early, because Mienfoo wasn't entirely played all that well. But it definitely had better endgame. Definitely like the Earthquake hitting the Drillbur on the switch in, and definitely like the Foonga switch in on the Pumpkaboo. Very, very solid switch ins. Unfortunately, the Foongas lost to Pumpkaboo's Destiny Bond, and also tried to Spore a Grass type. Not the smartest, unfortunate. Spore does not work on Grass type Pokemon. Caught him a little bit off guard. He realized it after the fact. Definitely sucks for that. But yeah, the other thing, RNG kind of didn't really favor him too much. Obviously, bringing in a Sleep Talk mon, and it Sleep Talks rest twice. It's literally an 11% chance of that happening. So definitely sucks when you play that game, but that's RNG for you. The biggest other issue was the Tortuga setting up Shell Smash very, very greedily. There was not enough done in terms of wall breaking for Tortuga to be able to sweep from that position. So I definitely was a little on the greedy side and got very dutifully punished. So definitely had potential. I could definitely see some good potential here. Obviously, you took a bit of a bad loss at 4-0. But at the same time, I think you can come back from this. I just think it's that little bit of mechanics. It's just to keep yourself in check. Sometimes I find slowing down kind of keeps your memory going in a little bit better over light. Alright. So, coming in at number 11 then is going to be Baconator, coach of the Chair City Kufants. Definitely interesting name. Pretty unfortunate game, has to be said. The Ponyta losing 1v1 to a very well prepped double priority Meowth with Water Pulse. Definitely really hurt. Ponyta was actually very, very strong against his opponent's team. I think the hardest part for Baconator, and one of the biggest reasons why he lost, he got a bit unlucky not to KO the Natu with the Onyx Rock Blast, only hitting twice. And obviously the Kufant play rough missing on the last turn, not killing the Diglett, so he didn't get a little bit more differential out of this. But I feel like he generally played very poorly around Natu and Machop. Especially Natu. Natu got so much value from his opponent. Picking up kills on both hazard removers. Ultimately, hazards didn't go up in the end, but it definitely made him very vulnerable. A lot of the bulk was gone relatively cheaply. Didn't really like the light screen play. Sacking off the Gossifleur. He did get a couple of nice kills though. Farfetch killing the Corphish with a nice crit on the Leaf Blade. Definitely a nice one. Obviously the Kufant taking out the Machop with the... I think it was Play Rough it took it out with. Unfortunately, it's not enough to claw back in the game. He kind of lost his way relatively early on, and ultimately it was damage limitation, and it didn't really get limited very well. Definitely sucks. RNG was not in your favor. Hopefully you'll get a better one next week. Alright. Next up then is going to be rank number 10. It's going to be Zeren, coach of the Giraffe Gang. Very, very strange turn 1. Not really sure why you would want your bulkier Pokemon to get toxic. Superpower on Stuffle, pretty unfortunate because the attack drop, the drawback definitely sucks. It's one of the drawbacks to Stuffle. Stuffle doesn't get the best fighting stab. It does get Hammer Arm, which is slightly less powerful, but the drawback is lowering speed. Maybe that would have been a better option because your team was relatively slow anyway. So I don't think Hammer Arm was all that bad here. But I did like the Ice Punch prep on the Stuffle, picking up a really good couple of kills, especially on the Cottony. That was definitely a really good bit of prep there. Staryu got a little bit fortunate with the crit on the Shallows taking it out. I'm not entirely sure that without the crit it would have killed. But the other thing that was kind of interesting for me was somewhat of a weird play. The Staryu clicking Thunderbolt into the Chinchou when you saw it would have had Volt Absorb because the Scald did damage the turn before. Definitely a bit of an unfortunate misplay there, giving the Chinchou health back for free, alongside just taking your Staryu into Stealth Rock damage range. Yeah, that definitely was unfortunate. The only other misplay really came from setting up Iron Defenses against a specially offensive Baltoy when Shadow Ball 2 it KO'd it. So, yeah, that was the only other unfortunate misplay. But from what I understand, Zeron's pretty new to competitive as well. There's quite a few new players to competitive in this league, so it's not too surprising to see these kind of plays happen. But yeah, definitely something to bear in mind. Try and make sure your bulkier Pokemon are as healthy as possible so they can pivot in a lot safer. But generally, I think there's potential here. Definitely like some of the tech that was brought, especially the Stuffle. So hopefully we get to see some good stuff coming soon. Alright, but next up, also on the same differential, is going to be Goose, of course, of the Wicked Whoopers. Pretty unfortunate with his Vullaby, dying to 4 Rock Blast hits on the Anorith. Definitely some awkward predictive plays as well, especially with the Hone Edge. Didn't quite go his way. But there were some good positives. The paralysis from Elekid's Static actually prevented Scraggy from sweeping. Definitely got him back into the game, but unfortunately there was too many threats on Nashady's team to actually be able to break through all of them, and he just didn't quite position his pieces enough. And I don't know if he necessarily had enough to be able to get through all of them. It was definitely a bit of a problem. But he's a good player, so I'm definitely excited to see what comes next for him. So I'm looking forward to seeing where we can go from there. Alright. Next up, coming in at rank number 8 is going to be some really weird person who's on your screen right now. It's going to be me, of course. Definitely a really, really fun game. Really close game. Definitely a matchup where I had the advantage, but unfortunately, kind of hacks prevented me from setup sweeping throughout the whole time, especially the Ice Punch from the Pancham freezing the Torchic. That took the Torchic out of commission when Torchic actually was a big threat against my opponent's team. Kind of unfortunate there. Oddish Sludge Bomb in my Munchlax as well meant that I couldn't keep my setup up. So that was unfortunate as well. But there was definitely some good moments for us. Grookey, of course, picking up 2 kills on the Caravana, especially with the Grassy Glide and Drain Punch on Pawniard. Very, very solid plays from Grookey's part. Unable to get through Litwick because my opponent prepped very well, bringing the Colbur Berry on it. Really good set. Definitely worth it. But what really sealed this loss for me and why I didn't win the game 1-0 was I min-rolled my Air Slash on the Oddish. I did have Hurricane on it though, so it's my fault for not clicking it. And that's simply how it is. I could have clicked Hurricane. I didn't click it. I should have clicked it, and that's unfortunately why I lost the game. I chanced to roll, and I lost because of it. I should have just chanced to miss, and I would have lost either way. So yeah, I need to be a lot more decisive. Definitely need to build up momentum. Typically, most people who've been around the channel for a while know I tend to lose my week 1 match very closely as well. It's usually 1 or 2-0 as I'm starting to get used to my team and stuff like that. So it's not too surprising, but I'm definitely expecting more of myself, especially next time, as I got a very tough opponent in Not Shady Kid this week, so I'm expecting a lot more to come. And speaking of my opponent is rank 7 this week. Coach of... I picked the wrong one up because I'm a doofus, but don't mind me. But coach of the Fusion Fishes is going to be Nougat Boy, of course. Definitely very fortunate on his end. He brought some very interesting sets. He didn't bring any hazard removal. No Bergmite, no Archon, so kind of interesting to see that. I definitely liked the Colbur Berry Litwick. Very good prep to deal with my Grookey. Rock Polish Pawniard caught me a little off guard. I didn't actually know Pawniard got Rock Polish. I was kind of expecting like a Swords Dance Sucker Punch set or maybe like a Rock set. So Rock Polish was not something I thought was coming. So I hadn't really practiced against that, and it did almost catch me out. Unfortunately, he didn't have enough damage to be able to get through Grookey, so I got a little bit fortunate there. He played very well around my Helioptile. He realized my Helioptile was going to be scarfed to try and outspeed the Caravana. Although he kind of misplayed the turn afterwards, forgetting that Grookey got Grassy Glide as well as Rillaboom did. So he unfortunately lost the Caravana after killing the Helioptile. But RNG definitely kind of favored him a little bit. I did get a couple of crits against him, but they were inconsequential. So definitely unfortunate. But he did show very solid prep. He did clearly have a good idea of how he wanted to play against me. So I'm definitely interested to see how he preps going forward and how things go. But that's a player I'm going to be watching pretty closely. Alright. Next up, coming in at rank number 6, is going to be Gandhi, of course, coach of the Indian Mafia. Really, really solid prep. I think he prepped very well to play against Zaran. Definitely brought probably the best 6 he could have done. I don't really see a fault anywhere immediately. He definitely got this far mostly by punishing Zaran's misplays. That's to be fair to least there, honestly. But the score bunny was an incredible matchup, and he played it very, very well. Really good coverage moves, taking out the Dino for free, taking out a couple of other kills as well with some really good coverage, and then pivoting out with U-turn to be able to play it to an end game really nicely. I'm definitely interested to see how Gandhi fares up against somebody that doesn't make these positional mistakes, doesn't often make these same kind of problems that Zaran was showing up in this match. Definitely interesting to see how that match goes, but either way, a very good solid week 1 performance. So it's going to be exciting to see what he brings next with a pretty good team in general. Alright, next up on the rankings this week, coming in at rank number 5, is going to be, when Streamlabs cooperates with me, it's going to be Not Shady Kid, of course, coach of the Breaking Zolts, who's actually my opponent this week. Very, very smart prep. Definitely brought a lot of good threats to Goose's team. Really good Anorith. Rock Blast, of course, on the Vullaby early game. Really, really smart play on that. Made some very, very nice switches. The Sandal on the Sandal switch in on Honage's Shadow Claw definitely struck out as a pretty good momentum play for me. Hacks kind of punished him a little bit. He could have got a little bit more out this game as Scraggy was denied the sweep due to the static. But honestly, he played his win condition very well, and that's exactly why I'm a little terrified of having to play him this week. But no joke. He's definitely a good player, and this is a very good, comfortable game for him. Really good showing. So we'll see what he can do this time round. I'm looking forward to it. Gonna be a very, very interesting match. Alright. Next up, these next 4, the top 4, all have the same win-loss and differential, so it was very, very difficult to play them through. Goose and I kind of were back and forth on a lot of different things, but coming in at number 4 this week is going to be Pratyush. I've actually spoken to him. I now understand how to pronounce his name, so I got him. Very, very good prep. Definitely like the Meowth prep, the Feint, Fake Out, and Water Pulse set to deal with the Ponyta. Very, very smart set. Really well thought out. Got really huge amounts of value out of Natu, especially picking up the kills on the Spinners, the Eldegoss, and the Tentacle. Really not doing anything on his opponent's team. Got a little bit of good fortune that the Kufant missed. I think that's why he was the 4th of all of these, because obviously had the Kufant killed the Diglett, the differential will be a little bit lower. So that was definitely a thing. Got a bit of good fortune, but still really, really good, strong 4-0 start to a season. You can't say ain't no to that. Like, if you were offered that before the start of the game, you'd take it. I think he definitely played nicely, so I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next from our good friend Pratyush. Alright, next up, I memed on him for crucifying his team for a tie run, so he decided to prove me wrong. Coming in rank number 3 is going to be Thief Yi, coach of the Florida Phalanx. Love his name. Some good points to look at and some kind of weird ones. The weird one definitely comes from the Tur 1. Aron not being sturdy for some reason. Not really sure why that's a thing. As I said earlier, I can only assume that it was a mistake on the team builder. But yeah, all that effort to pick up a Tyrant, Thief Yi, and it got dragon-tailed out by a Dreepy as you tried setting up on it. Kind of a bit of a fun one, not gonna lie, but Pichu and Woobat definitely stole the show. Pichu especially picking up 4 kills by itself. That was definitely kind of fun to see. Gotta love how you go to all that effort to pick up a Tyrant and then your other Pokemon do the work instead. Yeah, no. I think Thief's played very strong, played very, very well. So he's going to be a big threat moving forward. But yeah, I want to see an epic Tyrant suite. Now you'll put all that effort to get into it. Alright. Coming in at number 2 then. This was kind of a bit of a toss-up, but we ultimately both settled on this. It's going to be Chicken, of course, coach of the Dallas Diggersbys. He had a pretty favorable matchup, I'd say, especially good prep with Pumpkaboo and Charmander. Bring a lot of good tech to be able to deal with his opponent very nicely. Really, really good punish with the NK on the Shell Smash in Tortuga. Hitting up that Trick Room into the Superpower with Contrary, of course, boosting that defense so the Aqua Jet doesn't kill. Making sure that Epsilon's greed, definitely a very greedy Shell Smash. Got punished very carefully and amounted to absolutely nothing. There were a few little questionable switch-ins, a few little sloppy plays, like switching in the Drill Bro on the Earthquake when you're switching out a Charmander, and stuff like that. Little bit weird play of Mienfoo, not really sure why you would want to let that get burned. Pretty cheaply, it didn't really get much done, but he did play his endgame win conditions very solidly, and that's something you expect from someone who's very experienced in a Little Cup format. So I'm definitely excited to see what comes next, but we'll have to see. Alright, and that means that rank number 1 this week is going to be J-Plane, coach of the Slick Salandits. J-Plane played cleaner than anyone else this week. I think definitely deserving of the top spot. From pretty much start to finish, he played Chronoculars really, really strong. He read everything that Chronoculars was trying to do. He threw everything but the kitchen sink at Chronoculars, and Chronoculars kind of couldn't really do anything back. His prediction game was definitely strong. He definitely knew what his opponent was going to do. And his prep was very, very solid. You saw a lot of very key components on that team really putting in work. And of course, that Sinisteel that I desperately wanted, but he wouldn't let me have it. Played to a very, very strong endgame. And it's a very big win and a very deserving win of that rank number 1 spot. And that will conclude our power rankings for week number 1. Good luck, everybody, in your week 2 matches, except not Shady Kid, because I want to win. But yeah, either way, guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Rybombi Teacher. I'm your coach of the Royal Bomber for Bombies. Stay safe, stay awesome, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.